So in today's video, we're going to take a look at a cool, slow rhythm guitar idea. We're going to break down everything so you can take this idea, put it into your own playing, experiment with it. This could also expand the way that you think about rhythm guitar as well too. So in this part of the video, we're going to take a look at the first half. If you're interested in the second half, as well as downloading the PDF and the backing track so you can go and play and practice on this backing track that I used, you can go and look at the link down below. Alright, so before we do anything, let's take a look at the chord progression that's being played in the backing track. First chord is A7, 3, 4, 1, 2, and then C, D, A7, 3, 4, 1, 2, C, D, A7. Alright, so let's talk about this chord progression for a second. The first chord is your A7. Now for those of you who are curious as to why we have a 7 chord as our 1 chord, that often comes up in bluesier types of songs. So even though this is technically the 1 chord, we have that as a dominant chord just to give it a more of a bluesier flavor. That's generally the reason why that exists. So this is our 1 chord. And then we have this chord here. Now some of you may be curious, wait a minute, why do we have this chord here? Why do we have another major chord here? What's going on here? So let's analyze that for a second. We'll play an A major scale here. So this would be the 1 chord, 2 chord, 3 chord. So theoretically, we should have this chord and then this chord in this key. However, what's happening here, we noticed if we look at just the root, we have 1, 2, 3, but it goes 1, 2, flat 3. And also it turns into from a minor chord to a major chord. So we have this is something that's called the flat 3 major. Now, it's used a lot in blues music, Motown music. I'm pretty sure the people who came up with this type of chord, they perhaps didn't theoretically know what this was, but they just happened to move to that chord and they thought, oh, that sounds cool. So if I play you some examples, one example would be something like this. People who are really into Motown music might know what that is. Another example that has, 1, 2, and then the flat 3 major sound would be a song like this. Right, something like that. So I can't play too much of it, but some of you might know what that is. It has that kind of more bluesier sound, doesn't it? Right, so now that we have that out of the way, let's take a look at the first riff in this guitar rhythm. Alright, so let's break that down a bit. Let's take a look at just the first little bit of that phrase. Now you can think of this as kind of in that minor pentatonic box that a lot of guitar players might be familiar with, which looks like this. And it's this area, right? And so that little phrase is this. Alright, so again, talking about the chord that you're playing over this, you're playing this phrase over the A7 chord. So now if you take a look at the chord, we have this note here in the chord, right? But we're playing this. So you might be thinking, wait a minute. Well, why does that work? That shouldn't work, right? So this is a really good example as to, using that flat third playing with that note to give it that sort of cool or bluesy sound. If I just play the regular third, which is this note here, and I play a very similar phrase with it, let's listen to what that sounds like. Yeah, what do you think? It sounds almost to me like too correct. It doesn't sound as cool, right, as opposed to this, right? Something like that. It's like, if I think of it, another example in real life, kind of unconventional fashion, like you see some people wearing pants like too big for themselves, or some sort of strange hat or something. It's not quite right, but for some reason it's cool, right? So that's what you can think of when you're using a flat third over like even a regular major chord, or a chord that has that natural third in. All right, so moving to the next part in the progression. So we have this here, right? So if we go back to the chords, we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2. Now we have the C bar chord and the D bar chord. If I just drop my first finger, which is the root, we just have that. And I can use my first and third fingers just to play those, right? And that's so convenient. It's inside of that box. Now, we do have this extra note here as well. So if I were to really be specific as to what scale that note is coming to, that's almost like the Dorian scale, or something like that. But you can just think of that as throwing some chords in that pentatonic box, right? Then chord, right? So that phrase happens 2 times, right? So that first note coming from that pentatonic box, right? So starting on that 4, and then sliding to the root, which is the same note here. I just moved this note here just for a tone reason. It has a little bit more meat there, right? As opposed to... sounds a little thin for myself, so I preferred to move that note up here. Now, a way that you can see that clearer on the fretboard is you have this pattern of the pentatonic scale, but I just spreaded everything out and uses the position 2 of the minor pentatonic scale, just a bit of it, right? So we have a, and then into the position 1. So putting those 2 parts together, you have something like that. So that's where that first line is coming from. Moving on from there, still in the minor pentatonic scale. Playing the 8th fret here of the 2nd string, pulling off to the 5. Playing that blue note into the 4, flat 3, root. So putting these 2 parts together. see on the tab on the screen there. So what I did there, playing the C chord, the D chord, and then I'm playing that over this chord right now. That would be the bottom of that D chord shape that I'm playing with my first finger. Playing that and then sliding in to the C of the next chord, leading into the B section of the chord progression. So that's what's happening there. I'll play that one more time. And again, the tabs on the screen. Alright, and that covers the first half. So the second half we're going to take a look at in part 2. So part 2 is going to be containing how that box kind of moves up the fretboard and kind of a little bit of the theory behind it. And then it's also going to be taking a look at the minor pentatonic phrase that's being played near the end of the full example. If you want to check that out, the breakdown of that, as well as download the PDF and the backing track, again, enabling you to play along to the backing track yourself, this example, and then perhaps even if you can throw in some of your own ideas as well too, you can go and check that out in the link in the description. Anyways, I'll see you in part 2.